Hello and welcome to QuickTale English. Today we remember one of the biggest man-made disasters, a catastrophe caused by humans, in history. The Chernobyl Disaster, a night that changed the world. Our story begins in the Soviet Union, now Ukraine, at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. The year was 1986. The power plant had four large nuclear reactors, and a fifth and sixth were under construction. The nearest town was Pripyat, home to nearly 50,000 people, mostly the families of the power plant workers. Pripyat was a modern, young city full of hope for the future. The reactor that caused the problem was Reactor Number 4. The event that caused the disaster was not a natural disaster, but a badly planned and dangerous safety test. The date was Friday, April 25, 1986. The power plant workers were preparing to shut down reactor number 4 for routine maintenance. The managers decided this was the perfect time to run a special safety test that had been attempted before but never successfully completed. The test was designed to check if the plant could still cool the reactor core, the center of the machine, if the main electrical power was suddenly cut off. This was a very complex technical test. However, the team conducting the test made several fatal mistakes. They broke, too many of the safety regulations, rules, for nuclear reactors. They intentionally turned off, several critical automatic shutdown systems. They wanted the test to continue for longer. They let the reactor power drop to an extremely low and unstable, not safe, level. At 1:23 a.m. on Saturday, April 26th, the workers started the test. They wanted to raise the power quickly, but the reactor design, known as an RBMK reactor, had a major flaw, a serious design mistake. When the power dropped too low, it created a highly unstable situation. When the operators tried to increase the power quickly, the water inside the reactor suddenly turned to steam, hot gas. This led to a massive, unstoppable chain reaction. The power level went up 100 times higher than the reactor was designed to handle, all in less than a second. The result was not a nuclear explosion like a bomb, but a series of two massive non-nuclear explosions caused by the extreme pressure of the steam. The first explosion lifted the enormous 2,000-ton concrete roof of reactor number 4 into the air. The second explosion completely destroyed the reactor building. This explosion exposed the highly radioactive core to the air. Graphite blocks from the core caught fire, and a huge plume, a large cloud, of smoke, fire, and highly dangerous radioactive material was thrown thousands of meters into the atmosphere. This was the beginning of the largest release of radiation in history. The people working at the plant did not immediately understand the scale of disaster. They thought it was just a fire and a tank explosion. The senior engineers were slow to accept that the reactor core itself had been destroyed. The firemen from Pripyat arrived quickly. They were heroes. They fought the fires for hours, not knowing that they were standing directly next to the most radioactive place on Earth. Many of these firemen received deadly doses of radiation and died in the following weeks. In the nearby city of Pripyat, life continued normally that Saturday morning. Children played in the street, and people got ready for work. They saw the fire and smoke at the power plant, but officials told them everything was under control. Meanwhile, the Soviet government in Moscow tried to hide, the truth from its own people and the world. The radiation levels were incredibly high, but there was no immediate evacuation, moving people away from danger. It took 36 hours for the Soviet authorities to finally admit the danger. On Sunday, April 27, over 36 hours after the explosion, the city of Pripyat was evacuated. People were told it was temporary and were instructed to take only essential documents. They left behind their clothes, toys, pets, and their entire lives. They never returned. The Chernobyl disaster became an international story not because of the Soviet government, but because of a power plant in Sweden. 2 days after the explosion, scientists at a Swedish nuclear plant found dangerously high levels of radiation coming from the Soviet Union. When Sweden asked Moscow about it, the Soviet government was finally forced to admit that a major accident had occurred. The cleanup, known as the liquidation, was an immense and dangerous task. Hundreds of thousands of workers, called liquidators, were sent to Chernobyl to clean the site, fight the fires, and try to contain the radiation. They were pilots, soldiers, miners, and engineers. They risked their lives every day to prevent further explosions. Many suffered long-term health problems due to the radiation. To contain the destroyed Reactor 4, the government built a massive concrete and steel structure, known as the sarcophagus, to cover the reactor and stop the radiation from escaping. It was a temporary solution. The legacy of Chernobyl is huge. Environmental impact. A large area around the plant, the exclusion zone, remains contaminated and largely uninhabited. People cannot live there. Health impact. Thousands of people suffered from radiation sickness and increased cancer rates. Political impact. The disaster revealed the severe flaws of the Soviet system, including its culture of secrecy and its disregard for safety. The city of Pripyat remains a silent, empty ghost city today, frozen in time from the moment its citizens left in 1986. The Chernobyl disaster stands as a terrible warning about the dangers of human error, poor design, and the consequences of hiding the truth. It was a night that changed the world, reminding everyone of the incredible power and risk associated with nuclear energy. Thank you for joining QuickTale English. Subscribe for more stories about history, science, and major world events, and continue practicing your B1 English. See you next time.